You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace. This is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose. Let's go. Thoughts can keep you down, pushing deep until you drown, or they can keep you up strong, focused on the now. Glass half full, or has it been emptied out? Well, that's all up to you and your mind. Do you doubt anything, everything, not a thing? Make my thoughts work for me, manifest what I need, what I want, what I see. I could be anything, I attract all the things that I see. I believe I'll achieve as I breathe in and out again and again. I don't doubt, I sit and I plan, and I found out that I can execute if I'm driven, if I listen, if I learn all the wisdom. Read some books, something written, watch the best, teach a system I invest. Never hidden, I ain't scared, ain't no chicken, I take dares. I'll be winning, you get back what you're giving. Find the reason that you're living, what you're good at, all your gifts and what you love. Take a risk and find out what you've been missing. You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace. This is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose. You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace. This is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose.
All right, welcome to the Party Pals, GRC MAFIA. Right out the gate, we're here to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community, working towards a more secure future for everybody. Definitely a learning and growing environment. So this is one of the first 2 Thursdays of the month. So today we do have a presentation about emergency response and detection or documentation there. And I'm going to go ahead and drop the Discord because we do also have our badge going on right now. So if you guys hop into our Discord server, not only is that the best place to drop links, if you guys have any type of social media that you guys want to share to connect with each other, share different resources, the best place to do that is inside of the live chat on Discord itself, which will relay it to YouTube itself. Additionally, you can go through and grab your badge by going to that live chat channel and doing GRC MAFIA in capital letters. That unlocks a hidden channel for the next week. And so that gets reset every single Thursday for our primary session here. Definitely share throughout, ask questions, even if the questions don't pertain to exactly what we're talking about. Absolute worst case scenario, we circle back around to that. So at least myself will be here behind the glass, marking out questions as we go. Welcome to the Party Pal. KP, I saw Rania and B-Dubs and Regine and Cam. Let's see. Bam, GRC MAFIA. And so don't share anything that you don't want to be public. If you happen to do so, reach out to me on Discord, LinkedIn, or contact at studygrc.org. And then, of course, we also have B-Dubs. So you guys may or may not be familiar, but B-Dubs puts out a cybersecurity GRC related article every single Monday. Even puts a video read-along as well. Definitely check that out. And then we have our new website, actually. If you haven't seen the new website yet, there are a couple new things. Not only do we have our resources page, which is also going in chat, but then also we have the Coffee Mafia. So the Coffee with the Mafia is a new offering that we've provided at this point. So we were able to get a group of volunteers to go through, and now you can go through and actually schedule a one-on-one. Absolute $0. It will never be paid. We don't want donations. We don't want anything in exchange or otherwise. And that's definitely worth checking out as well. Sometimes that one-on-one is really useful. So definitely take a look at that. We'll actually have a promotion video dropping for that tomorrow. Yeah, thanks for the feedback there too, KP. So yeah, and not only one of the issues with the previous website was the fact that we didn't even have like all of the stuff that we offer. So that was one of the big things that I wanted to include this time around. It's also really quick. It's something I like. It's just static. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and transition over here. Welcome to the Party Pals, and I'll hand this over to Matthew here in just a moment. So this is going to be a little bit different, but this still has the overlap. And Definitely something that we should talk about more. Welcome to the Party Pal, Matthew.
Hello, it's great to be here. Hope everyone's having a great day today. Today, we're going to talk about emergency responses, the frameworks that go into them, and what the general recommendations are. And it's a
Perfect.
pretty broad term. So, emergency responses, we're talking about everything from a medical emergency at a work site to a weather storm that becomes extremely severe, where you guys have to hunker down and go to storm shelters and stuff like that. And different things you can make the process run a lot smoother in a work environment.
Sounds like risk reduction. And again, just another reminder, drop your guys' questions in chat. And then after this presentation, we'll open the stage and do Q&A as well. I'll hand it over to you. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure being here. So, what is an emergency response? So, emergency response is any type of emergency situation, whether that be a fire in the building or a medical emergency or security threats like a unwanted person on the premises, active shooter, stuff like that, or something like a operational error like a hazardous spill. Uh, we have to account for those things in the workplace and make sure that we have proper procedures in place to be able to protect not just ourselves, but also the public. Especially when we get to the hazardous spills section and the fires and explosions and all of that, it can affect not just the work environment, but it can affect the outside environment, the wildlife. If your factory or work sites in a town, it can affect the local residents, and you want to keep all of those people on good sides with you. So, one of the things we do is disaster management. So, we take proper actions to mitigate any type of hazard. This could be something as simple as having fire extinguishers all throughout your facility. So, if a fire does break out, you're able to quickly extinguish it and not have to involve potentially authorities or not have to evacuate the building as much and maybe just have to evacuate a section because that fire can be contained. Having the being prepared and having a plan in place for any different emergency that may go on. One common thing for preparing is having first respond teams. So these are dedicated teams that a lot of factories in my area at least utilize, where they'll give them extra training like first aid, CPR, how to use AEDs, how to control a scene, and they'll give them monthly training on this kind of thing. So they know those people can manage a situation if one does occur, whether that be helping orderly get people out of the building if there's a fire or explosion, or helping contain people if there's like an active shooter, helping grab people, getting them to a safe room or getting them to a safe exit. Um, and those people being trained, knowing what to do generally, and also teaching them on how to talk to 911 dispatchers to be able to relay information quickly and orderly in the way that they would like. So that way they can get a good response if medical or police are needed. And then, we just talked a little bit about response. Taking the more immediate your action is, the higher chance you have to contain the situation. If fire breaks out and you take 25, 30 seconds to respond to that fire, there's a chance that fire may go out of control and you might need the fire department. And if we can control it without the use of first responders, that that is ideal. And obviously, you still may end up calling the fire department to check the building, clear the scene, get their okay on it. But ideally, we don't want them to have to run in and go into a dangerous situation if we're able to control it. And another thing we should plan for is the recovery afterwards. A lot of people forget about this step of they put so much planning into how to be ready for the situation, what to do. They have all these checklists and they have all their people trained, but they don't have any planning for afterwards. Like how do we allow admittance back into the building? How do we continue our work? Are we going to, if there is an active shooter, like, are we sending people home? Or if there's no fatalities, are people going back to work in that situation? Or if there is a fire and possible damage to the building, what are we going to do? That's one thing to think about when making these plans, is what to do afterwards, and accounting for possible damage to the building or mental damage to your employees that maybe they should have a little bit of time off to recoup from. And these are the frameworks that we'll be going into today. So we have recommendations from FEMA with their preparedness guide. I'm sure all of us are pretty familiar with FEMA. They do a lot in the world. Then with OSHA, they do have guidelines for this, which is the OSHA 1910.38 that goes over emergency action plans in the work environment, what's required out of the employer for these plans, and what's recommended. Uh, that should be followed, and you should always try to exceed regulatory compliance. Then the NFPA 1600 also has disaster and emergency management plans. That one talks more about what your goals should be, not necessarily how to get to your goals, but it's a good idea of what goals you should go for to be able to be safe. And we also have links for all three of these if anyone's interested in looking into it. And then we also do have specific requirements depending your industry. Obviously, a industrial factory is going to have different requirements than something like a hospital or a mall. Because in a factory, you're going to have a lot more people on your side, whereas a mall, it's going to be a lot more chaotic. You might need a lot more different things than what you would need in a work environment. And then benefits of going over this, you have a lot less liability if something does happen. You have a lot less chance for injuries if something does happen because you're prepared for it. It also looks good on your insurance premiums. It can possibly reduce your amount you're paying if you have plans in place for when things hit the fan. Uh, and you can go over that with insurance companies to be able to determine what type of discount it is. But it's a good chance they will offer you a discount for that. And then it also promotes coordination along with other employees and with your local first responders, police department, fire department, and EMT. Those people are great people to have coordination with. So when something does go wrong, they know exactly how to do it. And we have some key elements of a safety plan here. So for a emergency response plan, you're going to want to have roles designated. You're going to want people knowing what they're doing, how they're doing it, and when they're doing it. You don't want 5 different people doing the same thing because then that's just redundant. Uh, there's no point to that. So everyone should have a role and everyone should know their role, and you should test people on those roles. Your first responders should be grabbing medical supplies, like if you have AEDs in the building, first aid kits in the building, or a lot of people when they have a first responder team, they'll have something called a jump bag, where it's a bag of necessary medical supplies in an emergency situation that's already bagged up, ready to go, where they can just run by, clip it off the wall, get out of the building, or get to where they need to be. You should have your first responders fully trained on what's expected out of them. Uh, like if your first responder is going to be running by a fire extinguisher and a jump bag while heading out of the building, they should probably grab both of those things just in case they need them. Obviously, we hope that they won't need them, but it's a good thing for them to have if they do need it. Uh, even if it's a fire, for example, and everyone gets out of the building safely, there might have been someone that tripped and got a cut on themselves. That jump bag is going to have medical supplies to give them a band-aid, maybe some antiseptic or something like that, so you can make them feel a little bit better. Every single one of your procedures should be laid out very clearly and to a T, account for pretty much everything, which is impossible to do, but as much as you can think of, it should be accounted for. You should also have other things like supervisors should know what they should do, account for their team members. Everyone should have good communication also. You should also have someone designated to call 911. You don't want 15 different people calling 911 and giving them all a different story. You have one person designated to call 911 who will be there on site to be able to relay information, whether there's people stuck in the building or injuries or what door they should go through, everything they need. If there's a hazardous spill, what spill happened, if there's anything that could be done, such as if there's someone stuck in a specific room and you know it, that person should relay it. We shouldn't have multiple people contacting emergency services because then it makes them all confused. Then having people coordinate with first responders when they get there. That should be a different person for every single one of these roles because we don't want to overload anyone. And every single one of these people should also have a checklist with them. It's very common where they'll have it on like a Google Drive, for example, and give access to everyone who's a first responder or instant commander or whatever their role is, where they can quickly just open up the Google Drive, click on that checklist, and they can go through that checklist real quick because in the heat of the moment, they may forget a step. And they may want to refer to that real quick to remember where they are, what they're doing. Because in that moment, you're going to be flooded with adrenaline, and a lot of people can't handle that very well. So, having that checklist can really smooth things out and having very good communication throughout that process, uh, such as using walkie talkies, PA system, whatever you need to use, you should be using. Ideally, you want to communicate person to person, but that's not always possible. So, using walkie talkies, for example, is extremely common. You should also have multiple forms of communication in case something goes down. If your primary source of telling people there's a issue in the building and they need to evacuate is a PA system, well, what happens if it's a electrical fire and the PA system's down? Now, no one's going to know until it's getting to the point of being too late. So, having the walkie-talkies or having a text that goes out to every employee in the building, like their phone numbers on file, and telling them like, "Hey, evacuate the building," can save precious seconds, if not minutes, before they would have known that there was an issue. And doing your risk assessments regularly. A lot of people, it's a common issue. They'll do a risk assessment. They'll 4 or 5 months down the road, they'll add a new part of machinery or they'll add a new section to the factory and they forget to redo the risk assessment, which can be really bad if you have a emergency route that goes straight by a specific area, and let's say that's the main emergency route that everyone gets trained on and uses frequently in drills, and you put a new station there, and that station is using a flammable chemical, and that chemical lights on fire, and that fire alarm goes off, and everyone starts evacuating that way, then that can cause a lot of injuries. So a lot of companies, what they'll do is tell instead of having a designated route where everyone leaves through, they'll tell employees the closest, safest exit, whether that be through a fire door or that be going to the front of the building and getting out that way or the back of the building. It's a good practice in drills to have people use the safest exit, like beforehand, having supervisors or something like that of during the drill block off a common exit. Be like, yeah, no, there's a fire back there. you have to find another way out and make them use their critical thinking to find another way out. And that can make them think when that emergency actually happens of how to get out a little bit quicker. And then tracking is a very important step. Knowing what's happened in the factory beforehand, keeping good documentation of that, along with storms. Uh, I live up in North Dakota, and we've been having some really bad tornadoes lately. We've had more tornadoes so far this year than we have in the past, I believe, 5, 6 years. Uh, so trends can change pretty quickly, and the factory I'm in, we've already kind of curved with that, making sure everyone's trained on tornado procedures and all of that. So having regular training for things that may change, it's a very good idea. And keeping in mind of factory specific things, like what chemicals you use, the equipment you have in your building, and the possibility for fires and where those fires may set off, along with medical emergencies. If you have a station in a specific part of the factory that has a high risk for a medical crisis, maybe having that station closer to a exit door or bay door that you can get a gurney through is a better idea than having it in the back of a factory. Because then, if something does happen, at least emergency services will be able to get the person out in a timely manner and get them to medical assistance. So for documentation, we talked already a bit about written plans and checklists. I recommend having them electronically also, so you can share it with your people easily. If you just have them written and throughout the floor, things get lost, things get forgotten when they're written, and you have to remember to grab them. So everyone these days has phones. Everyone these days knows how to use phones for the most part, especially us younger generation people. So it's not too complicated to pull up a like Google Drive folder and stuff like that. So having them on there, you can have the written plans out on the floors, but having multiple forms of it is always a great idea. So no one can forget. And even if someone does forget, you can pull it up on someone else's phone who's also a first responder. Having up-to-date contact lists, and this is not just for your employees, having up-to-date contact lists for the hospitals nearby, the police department nearby, non-emergency numbers and emergency numbers, so that way you can easily contact these people if there's an emergency present. Uh, there are emergencies out there that don't necessarily warrant 911. So having that non-emergency number can really benefit that, or having a direct line to the ambulance, and that comes with, cooperation with your local first responders too. People maybe hosting a event, getting that collaboration going on. First responders should also play a role in helping you plan your, uh, emergency response plans. Uh They should have a key role in it, like be given keys to the building, for example. Like if your factory is shut down for the weekend and a fire breaks out in it and they don't have a key to the building, you'd prefer them not to bust down the door. So giving them a key so they can easily get in and make sure that the situation's under control is a great idea. I know I've talked with some of the local first responders here in my town, and we do that with them. And they're very gracious of it because it can really help make a situation go a lot easier because they prefer not busting down doors too. And having very, very well documentation and storing that documentation. So that way you can look back on it and go like, oh, yeah, out of everywhere in the factory, this particular area has had this amount of incidences that we've had to evacuate for. Maybe we can look into mitigating that issue or try to curve it in some way. So, common protocols for communication. We talked about this a little bit already. You have PA systems, you have radios, you have emails, you have texts, you have phone calls. There's so many different ways to communicate, and you should utilize as many as possible. So that way, if one system is down, you can use a different system. Yeah, the resizing on this slide did not go very well. Luckily, I can still see the letters, but it did not size very well. And having clear procedures and escalations to be able to make very quick critical decisions. And that comes with proper training to majority of people do the monthly refreshers for their first responders team. And they'll take a different topic every single month to make sure they're refreshed on it. Uh, we just had one in the factory that I work in about 2 weeks ago, and we did a refresher course on choking hazards and how to perform the thrust remover maneuver to help get stuff out of people's throats, and how to do it on infants also to be able to help outside the workplace too. Uh, Along with testing for all of your notification stuff, if you're using a text and email chain, if something goes on, having testing of that every few months or so, every quarter, is always a great thing. And having clear reporting is always a good idea too. So that way you can keep track of the incidents so you can mitigate them and possibly not have to evacuate the building as much, not have as many emergency situations as if you didn't. So this is for training mainly. So you always want to train all employees, but train specific employees for specific tasks, like if they want to be first responders or walking wardens or incident commanders and stuff along those lines. So every employee should be trained on awareness. It's not a complex training module. If you see smoke, there's a fire, for example. Teaching your employees how to handle basic emergency situations to prevent them from becoming worse. Uh, how to use fire extinguishers. Uh, I don't believe most areas it is not required to fully train or force your employees to use a fire extinguisher, but offering the training is a good idea. I know where I live personally, they do not require it for any employee to have to use a fire extinguisher, but almost every employee at the facility I work in knows how to use a fire extinguisher and hopefully uses one when it is needed. Operations, training your first responders to do the correct actions, teaching them those hands-on skills. Like, don't just go through module after module every month. Actually get test dummies, get first aid supplies for them to test with so they can physically do the tasks. There's a bunch of different things you can buy online these days to be able to teach them how to do wound care and how to stabilize a person until the professionals like EMTs or until they get to the hospital can get their hands on them. Then having specialists, like if you have chemicals, for example, that are oxidizing or very harmful to humans in general, or can uh, combust, having hazmat teams, people who are trained to deal with those chemicals and stop the outbreak from spreading, having those people trained and trained regularly is a great idea if you have any of those things in your factory. Uh, and little disclaimer at the bottom, all training must be documented. If you teach a employee something, document it. So that way if something bad does happen, it covers your butt a little bit and go, "Hey, we trained these people to do this. That's why they did this. They may not have done it correctly, but we did teach them the right way. And having in-house training greatly cuts down on costs too. Uh, where I'm at, a lot of our training is done in-house. If we don't have someone in-house to do the training, we'll send someone in-house to go get the training to be able to train it. Because it cuts down on cost a lot more. You can have it work with your guys' work schedule to be able to get the training done, and you have a trainer that can train at any point. So instead of having to go through a third party company to get your training done and have to work on their schedule and your schedule, it's a lot smoother to just do it in house. Having regular drills. Now, a lot of companies, they'll do regular drills for like fire drills or severe weather drills, but you should do regular drills on everything if you have a plan for it to make sure everyone knows what to do. Have regular drills on a unauthorized person in the facility. Have regular drills on fires, on explosions, on active shooters, so everyone can keep it refreshed in their mind that, oh, this is a possibility. This is what I'm supposed to do in the situation. And after you do the drill, you should be taking notes during the drill. So after you do the drill, you can look back on the drill and go, okay, we did these things right. We need improvement on these things, and talk to those employees that need improvements. Don't just go up to your staff after the drill and go, you guys did a great job. I'm proud of you. Critique them and tell them, like, you guys did great, but you guys could work on this or this or this. So that way we can work on continuous improvement, and it helps us not get into a loop of just this is what we do. And these drills can also really point out if there's a issue in your plan too. Uh, like the fire drills, for example. If your mustard stations are too close to the building, or people don't know where to go during a drill, it can point out those little tiny basic things that you wouldn't know until an emergency happens that people don't know what to do. So compliance and common pitfalls. So we've talked briefly throughout the slide about common issues that present themselves when making emergency plans. Uh, and as long as you follow the proper framework for this stuff, you should never run into these issues. But as humans, we tend to be very compliant. So these are common issues that we should keep in mind when we are doing this. So having outdated emergency contact information. It's not that hard to send out a notice to your employees every quarter or every or twice a year or something like that, and tell them like, "Hey, make sure your emergency contact information is up to date." So if you have to rush someone to the hospital because they had a severe injury, you can contact the right person and tell them like, "Hey, your significant other's in the hospital. You might want to go see them." Making sure you have adequate documentation of your training, especially if it's required training. If OSHA requires that training and they come in and they do an inspection and you have inadequate documentation, that's a ding. A lot of companies failure to review emergency plans. So we talked about that briefly already too, where we should be reviewing these plans, especially when there's a change in the factory, like a new station. We should be reviewing them every few quarters or if there's a change in the building. And drill frequencies. I talked about this a little bit where a lot of companies, they just do fire drills and severe weather drills. You should be doing drills for anything that you have an emergency plan for. Then best practices, we talked about in-house trainers. We talked about having standardized forms for reporting. We talked about doing self audits slightly, where you do your drills and you write down everything going on in the drill, so you can critique yourself and your employees on how you guys can do better. and managing digital and physical copies of the plans so that way you can easily get those plans wherever you are and review all of that stuff very frequently. So, we talked about technology involved in this. Technology is amazing. I think all of us, to an extent, love technology here. Having We can do emergency notification systems through texts and emails. Uh, that's a very useful tool that we can utilize when having to get the word out that there's a issue happening in the building using cloud-based stuff like Google Drive to store our emergency response plans and checklists. So that way we can share them with the employees. Uh, Also online, there's a bunch of metric data that you can save to be able to track your metrics. There's also online tools to be able to identify if there's like high chances for tornadoes, for example. So you guys can be on a heightened alert uh, if there may be a tornado coming by your way. This slide is a little bit of a real world example of information that people would want. If a person is transporting hazardous materials, they should have a binder. Ideally, a binder that's clipped by the driver's side door right next to the driver's seat, where they can easily pull it out if they get into a crash and they tip over and they spill that hazardous material all over the place. They should be able to contact emergency services. They should be able to list all of these things simultaneously. Precise location and time of the incident, all of the material information, the identification numbers. That'll tell them what material they're dealing with. If it's an oxidizing material, if it's flammable, if it's cancerous, and it'll also give them information on how to do cleanup and what the proper hazard response team should do when they get out there, and how to possibly contain it easier. Because right there, you're dealing with possibly soil and asphalt and all of that. It can spread really fast and really easily. They should also be able to tell them the container type and the rough quantities of it, if there's any exposures, injuries, and if they are treating anyone at the moment. Like if it's a light acid and someone got some of it on their skin and you're washing, first thing you should do generally is wash it off. Run it over water for 5 minutes and it should wash right off if it's a light one. And all of this will tell them about the environmental impacts, and they should also have the phone numbers for agencies that they need to contact, like a hazard response team, like alongside with 911 and stuff. And they should also be knowledgeable enough to tell them like this is what happened in order, like from the start of the accident to the end of the accident. Then this slide's talking about our continuous improvement. This is why we document incidences. We don't care how small it is. We don't care how big it is. It needs to be documented so that way we can analyze it, we can store it, we can look at it and update our procedures based on it. And then we can also share knowledge with other facilities to be able to help them be safer. Uh, Another facility may not have seen a hazard that you guys did see. So communication with other departments, just like in cybersecurity and stuff like that, communication with other departments is critical. So that way everyone's on the same page. You guys know how to be able to handle situations when they arise. And this is the standard best practices. Utilize these frameworks to be able to develop our plans. Maintain our documentation, especially with any type of organization changes. All documentation should be saved. Ensure that everyone throughout the facility, 24/7, if that facility is open, there should be people with access to the emergency plans and procedures. Integrate that documentation into daily operations, not just during emergencies, where Like if you guys have a computer, like having it next to the computer, if you guys have to like go over to the computer frequently, have storing it next to the computer or underneath the computer. Voila, easy grab and go. And then establish clear responsibility for people who need to have responsibilities during this, like our first responders, our floor wardens, all of that fun stuff. They should have accountability if they do something wrong. And as always, remember, practicing and being safe is just the first step. Preparing for the worst case scenarios, that's how we can save lives and how we can protect everyone. And now we're going to open up the Q&A. I saw some people had some questions throughout that slide.
First of all, what a nerd. Documentation and paperwork. Wow. Yeah, there's quite a few different questions here that we'll go through in just a moment. I did want to just shout out David B here real quick, lining up, in real life plans with friends on our weekly session night. I get it, but I can't say I'm not emotionally damaged by that, David B. It is what it is, I guess. Let's see here. So how much does the management differ org to org and industry specific, or does the overall structure of the plan look similar?
So you may have the overall structure pretty similar, like for fires and stuff like that. But for example, if you're working in a factory, uh, you're going to have cooperation from everyone. So you can better handle the situation. Whereas if you're in a public atmosphere like a hospital, a mall, stuff like that, there's going to be a lot of civilians around who don't know your emergency procedures. So you're going to have more people to help guide those people on what to do in the situation. And then you also have higher risk areas too. Your work environment may not have a very high risk for a unwanted person coming on property, whereas a hospital or mall may have a lot higher risk for that sort of thing. So they may have to plan a little bit better for that and have more procedures in place to prevent it than a factory may. And then also you have the other things like chemicals. One factory may have a high risk for explosions, whereas another factory may not. Uh, so it's very industry specific in that way, but overall, it's pretty basic, pretty much the same across the field until you get to the nitty gritty about like public atmosphere.
Yeah, and then also in regards to that too, would there be sensitive parts to a plan such as active shooter? Is that a plan that you would not have public? Like it seems like some of these different response plans, maybe that wouldn't be something you would want to just freely distribute, especially like regarding like maybe hazardous material. Like if a threat may know what your response is going to be.
So these days, when it comes to an active shooter, pretty much every facility uses the same response, which is pretty much run, hide, defend. Uh, they pretty much everyone uses and teaches that these days. Hide, try to stay as calm as possible, and defend yourself if needed. Hopefully, first responders, police can get there in time before you have to defend yourself. But overall, when it comes to an active shooter, I don't know of any facility that tries to keep their policies with that secretive because it's so well known. And you want the general public to be knowledgeable about that because it's not just about being safe in your facility. You want everyone to be safe at all points. And if you found a specific plan for an active shooter, for example, that greatly increases your chance to defend yourself, you should share that with everyone. So that way they can defend themselves if it happens to them outside of the environment. Now, if you have like a safe room, for example, in your facility, which I don't know of a facility that has a safe room like that, but if you have one, maybe, yeah, keep it to employees, but also in an employment environment like a factory, chances are is it's an ex-employee if the facility has an active shooter. So they're already going to know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like my thought was especially like with hazardous material or otherwise, like if I'm transporting explosives, then maybe I don't want my response plans to be known.
Well, you wouldn't want your
but-
route to be known, but yeah, you would have on the trailer, you would have the pentagons back there, the pentagrams to be able to show what's in the container. And there's obviously exceptions to every rule, but
Yeah. Yeah, I was
yeah,
just
if
kind
you
of
have
curious
hazardous
how.
materials in your facility that may be very critical, if public knew about it, keep
Mhm.
that on the down low.
Cam also asks, what level of event dictate the documentation step? For instance, with tornadoes, watch, warning, actual siren.
So as far as documentation with tornadoes, one thing I do personally is track tornadoes. If there's a lot of tornadoes popping up in your area, like let's say there's a storm coming towards you, and 100 miles away, that storm has caused 5, 6 tornadoes. It's a pretty good likely chance that when the storm's over you, there's a pretty good chance there's going to be a tornado. So monitoring that type of thing and documenting it, like, hey, yeah, there was 4 tornadoes around us yesterday, and we implemented severe weather warning. These are the steps that were followed, and talk about it the next day with the team that put it together, and critique them. Look at the cameras and go, like, yeah, you guys did everything to a T. The only thing I would recommend doing differently is XYZ thing.
I wanted to say I think you did a great job. What I was able to catch there, Matt, and I used to be a health safety officer myself, and you said a couple things, and I'll get off the stage because I don't have that much time. I am going to help a friend with their own emergency response. But I wanted to ask you, you brought up run, hide, defend, but when 2 years ago when I was in the DOT, it was run, hide, fight, and I wondered if they changed that now just because they wanted to limit liability possibly somehow. I didn't know. You're more into it now than I am, so I'm just curious. And then also, last but not least, our favorite used to be called the MSDS, right? And now it's all the
Yep.
safety data sheet, because I think the government said, that extra M is just, well, there's just too much.
Well, and it's pretty much the same exact thing too.
Exactly.
Well, it's like the run, hide, fight and run, hide, defend is pretty much the same thing. I think it's just how they word it, because run, hide, fight, you're still running, you're hiding, and to an extent defending your location.
Yeah.
Which is the same exact steps, just different words to be able to use. Which it could be a liability issue. They don't want to tell people to fight because then something bad happens, they might be able to come after them.
Yeah, I mean, they're covering their butts too, for sure. But when you said that, I said I don't remember it being that way. But things change. Hey, as soon as the new regime takes over in the White House or whatever, things change quickly too, right? So, not to be political, but the point I'm making is, it's just you always got to stay abreast of everything, and I like what you're putting out there, and I think more people took that into risk, and that's what we do at GRC, right? It's governance, risk, and compliance. So if you start thinking about all the things that could happen, yes, I mean, it'd be a long laundry list, but you could prepare for the things that are more likely to happen depending on the business that you're in. I used to work in aviation, and so we had different fuel, and we had those placards on the back, and a lot of people don't know what those numbers mean, and not that they should know those, but you can get that DOT book, and you can know what those like 1993, I think, was gasoline. I can't remember off the top of my head, but maybe you do. But long story short, great presentation, man. I wish I could stay and chat with y'all longer, but I have to go take care of some business. So y'all have a fantastic evening, and I'll watch the rest when I get back, Chris.
Of course, no worries.
Awesome. Thank you. You have a great night.
You too. Later.
Yeah, David B there is such a nerd. So also Jasmine over here has a question regarding did you mention anything about working with public relations if such occurrences do occur, which I don't believe you touched on that at all.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, that's one part I did skip over. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes. So one of the roles that you should have planned is I must have skipped it in the slide. I could have sworn I had something on there. Uh, but anyways, so you should have someone for public relations at any time that a incident may occur if the factory is open, because if you're going to have police responding, fire department responding, ambulances responding, there's a good chance that news organizations are also going to be responding. So you want to have someone trained, like a incident commander, on how to talk to the public and how to ease them. Like if there's a fire going on, make them feel
mhm.
more calm, and don't like aggravate the situation. Uh, you are
And that
going to
would
want
just be
someone
like
trained for
a
that.
designated point of contact that would be notified.
Yeah.
Um, could you briefly describe like what their responsibility would be? That's just like working with the public and like a news disclosure kind of thing, right?
Yeah, where they'll pretty much just talk about what took place. They'll make the critical decisions at the moment of what type of information should be released. Uh, like if it's a chemical spill, saying like, yes, it's a chemical spill. It has these properties, or it was this chemical, and we have the situation fully contained. Ease the public. You don't want to cause any type of distress out there, even if you may not have it 100% contained. Uh, Tell me I got the situation under control.
Yeah, I was just throwing this in chat too because KP also mentioned regarding that too, and I just said, yeah. Um, Note to self, not me. We screwed up, lost all your data. Get over it. Lose his job. Legal department's in the background yelling and screaming.
Yeah, and those people should be trained on the legal aspect too, because you don't want them to potentially violate HIPAA and stuff like that too, because you may be dealing with a medical
Oh,
situation.
yeah, that's a really good point actually. Because yeah, especially regarding the safety side, there's a bigger emphasis on people's medical information and incidences and so forth. There's also this one here too. So SIA was the first professional certification ever implemented. Let's see. Oh, and then I also noted this down too. So you had mentioned about tool usage, like you can go through and store your policies on a Google Drive or otherwise and so forth. That's also one reason why I think the other person had asked about like disclosure, whether that should be public or not. Are there any like industry known tools that we could take a look at? Maybe there's some like free training or academies out there or otherwise that's popular.
As far as tools go to share the information, like we were talking about with um, procedures and checklists and stuff like that, I don't know any off the top of my head. Uh, the first one I was able to think of was Google Drive. You can also have an internal one too if you do have a concern about public gaining the information. You
Yeah.
could run it privately. Uh, but off the top of my head, I only know of the big ones regarding like cloud servers. And with Google, like pretty much everyone has a Google account. It's super easy to share uh, those Google Drives with people. Uh, and these people that are on like the first responder team, for example, they're most likely going to be entry level employees. They may not have
Mhm.
like a workplace email and stuff like that to access like private stuff with the organization. So having it more public may be better, but it all depends on industry specific. Like if you're at a hospital, for example, you guys most likely already have an internal server that everyone has access to that you guys can easily upload it to and share.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. We did drop the links throughout as well. I'm actually going to drop all of them at one time in chat here. So you can also check this out in the Discord server too. But just so that way that's all in one spot. One of the reasons why I bring up the tool usage is because like we have a resources page for GRC, And I could definitely see adding a category for the occupational safety side of things and so forth. Would you say that occupational safety is like the overarching topic for it though, and then like everything kind of flows underneath occupational safety, or would there be a different term for that? Because I know there's also like environmental and so forth as well.
So occupational safety mainly revolves around the health and safety of the employees. And then you have the environmental impact where a lot of times those roles are combined. You have what's called a EHS, environmental health safety, where they
Mhm.
do everything from occupational safety to environmental impacts. Uh, so it's very entwined with the environmental side. It kind of depends on the size of the factory and what you're doing.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, and then I know you were going to go through the Q&A, so we're done with the Q&A now. Did you need to go?
Nope, I'm good for a bit longer.
Oh, okay. Bam. I was going to go through and pull this other document up and skim through some of these resources that you also provided as well. If you guys have, oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions regarding this realm or the presentation itself, or even if you guys have other questions, definitely drop that in chat and we could further discuss it and so forth. Worst case scenario, we'll circle back around to it. So KPS, is emergency response plan the same as the crisis management plan, or are they
Yes.
different?
Yep. Same thing, different words. Emergency, crisis. Uh, I've heard it said a few different ways. I generally say emergency because it's a very common word, and when people think of crisis, it makes them think of chaos. And we don't want people thinking chaos. We want people thinking more organizational.
I I think that would be kind of funny from a business standpoint, though. Just rename the documentation, chaos action plan. Yeah, no, that sounds good. And there's a lot of stuff that can go into, I know, the emergency response plan, because also not only do we have the whole safety side of it, but then also from the cybersecurity standpoint, of course, and depending on the company size of, that could be combined as well. Something I was going to show here is this is one of the resources that you did share, and all of these links are in the live chat. If you guys are dark mode, then put your sunglasses on. I wanted to just showcase this. So this is a link to, the laws or acts or regulation. This is through the Department of Labor. So I'm assuming this is a regulation for emergency action plans.
Yep, this is a OSHA regulation. It's part of the 1910 standards, which is a standards throughout any company that has to follow OSHA in the United States. And this goes over emergency planning, how you should do exit routes, stuff like that, the different tools you should have available, like fire extinguishers, and the training required for your employees to be effective.
Yeah, and so the big reason why I wanted to bring this up is because we are familiar with like NIST CSF, the 853. There's different stuff like the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, ISO, all of these different frameworks and standards that we typically talk about. And we're trying to cause more awareness on the safety and health side of things and so forth, because it still involves that level of risk and risk reduction and the company business end of it. So if you look at this, I really wanted to point out the fact that they have these different subparts here. You could literally just think of this as controls. This is a framework in itself. And considering it's a regulation, I guess a more proper term would be a standard. But yeah, I mean, this is straight up just controls that you would go through, and you would need to verify that these are, just as if you are going through GDPR or CCPA, you would go through this and be able to mark out like, okay, yeah, our policies are are meeting this requirement for 1910.38C2 and so forth. And this is even something that we could potentially, I don't know. I think Matthew had mentioned before that there's a lot of stuff on this, so I don't know about exporting this into an actual framework document, but at least section by section, possibly.
Yeah,
I
you
wanted
have
to note
these
that.
you have these standard ones that you have to follow. Majority of people do exceed. Uh, Looking at some of the other frameworks, and it's just like pull it up. I just saw it. 1910.38 section D,
Uh-huh.
employee alarm system. It only states that you have to have one. It does not state you have to have a backup. Majority of facilities have multiple. They have 2 to 3. So that way, if the first one fails, they have a backup to the backup.
Can you even describe to me what the hell they mean by employee alarm system?
So that's like a audible alarm, like a fire alarm, for example, and having specific alarms for different things. Like some companies have a audible alarm for active shooters too, where it'll
Mhm.
just keep on dinging to notify the employees that there's an emergency happening.
Is there another corresponding document to this that provides more detail? Like if
No,
you no? Oh
so
god.
these are just standards. These are just the bare minimum. This is what you have to do to be able to be employing people. Uh,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, so like with some of our documents, like the 853, there's also what's called the 853A, which provides more in-depth conversation on each control to help describe more of what is actually required, because a lot of these different things could be kind of vague and not very clear. So that's what I was kind of curious. And I'm kind of surprised that there's not something, because like me, who, has no idea about this entire realm, um, I would have to like look this up and try to figure out what they mean by employee alarm system.
Oh yeah,
So
and that's why training is like very necessary so you can understand the terminology and understand the way to be able to do things. Uh, and there's a bunch of different frameworks out there, like the FEMA one, for example, that we sent out that goes over on how to be able to implement and maintain emergency operations, and they go over. Yep, right there. And it goes. You can go down to the contents page, and you can see how much information they have in this one
and
document.
this has massive overlap. So I was already skimming through this while Matthew was presenting, and there's a lot of stuff in this plan here, and I'll go ahead and post this again. But yeah, we're looking at all the planning fundamentals that we typically see on our end, typically as well. Yeah, there's a lot of information in here. And here's like the emergency operations plan for structuring and so forth. Steps in the planning process.
Yeah, the
6.
1910 standards are ridiculous. It will take a very long time to read all of them. Pretty much every single thing out there in the occupational field has a regulation, and they all have those standards for a reason. If OSHA has a standard for it, there's a reason that standard was made.
Yeah, I feel like Cam is trying to get PBO to react. The 853 is known as like the big brother of them all because it has like 1,100 and some odd controls. It's like the biggest thing on our end. Extremely heavy lift and so forth. But yeah, like the entire stuff through OSHA and all the standards and regulations regarding this safety side it actually really surprises me. And I mentioned this to you before privately on the fact that up to this point, there's not as much breakdown of the safety and health side of things as there is for the cybersecurity side. So,
yeah, and we're seeing more and more people coming into the safety field, along with more and more tools to be able to use at our disposal. I know I was really shocked. I talked to you about this about a year and a half ago. There is a AI tool made for incident reporting, where you'll take photos and upload a brief description of what happened, and AI will cover it from there, and it'll record your OSHA 500s and all that fun stuff for you. And that was like incredible when I saw it.
Yeah. Well, and also KP mentions maybe add to the resources page. Yes. So this is one of the biggest reasons why we're doing this stuff is because this has a 100% overlap and should also be involved in that entire GRC program. Up to this point, if you look around, you ask around and so forth, GRC does have a massive focus on cybersecurity, but you'll also see there's quite a few people who mention cybersecurity GRC because it's not just cybersecurity. And this is also why there needs to be more conversation on it, because there's entire companies with GRC teams, even though that alone is rare, but they don't even handle or deal with the safety side of things, even though, logic kind of dictates that it should kind of go in the same. So, and that's my thought process. That's how I see GRC evolving. That is not how it's done right now. But 10, 15 years from now, it would make more sense to have the entire governance, compliance, governance, risk, compliance underneath the same umbrella. So let's see here. The 853 is supposed to be the PBO bat signal. Yeah. If you guys did not know, PBO will be presenting next week about third-party risk management. That is going to evolve around like, how do you onboard? So if you get a new vendor or third party, then what really should you be doing? Like if you align with 853 or otherwise, how would you go through that process? What are some of the different things that are involved with managing a third-party risk management program? And then we'll also, following PBO's presentation, we'll have a hands-on type of activity as well. So,
Yeah, and if you go over to that NFPA one that was shared, that one goes over more of what your goals should be. And if you go down to like page 6, 7, and then into 8 and 9, you'll be able to see like just how much goes
oh my
into
God.
just making emergency plans and everything that you need to take into account.
Yeah, and so this is from 2013. Is this something that we should expect being updated? It's managed. This is on an EDU website.
Yeah, this when it comes to like standards like this, they don't update very frequently because the overall purpose doesn't change. Uh,
Hmm.
you're not dealing with like on the cyber side, like you guys have probably changes on the daily on how to do things. Maybe a little bit more spread out by that. But on the safety side, like we have a general of like this is how we do things. And it doesn't change it can change industry to industry, but like we don't have to deal with like programming and coding and this and that changes frequently. Which is a benefit for us.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like some people will put down NIST for the documentation, like I think FIPS or something like that. One of the different there's some documentation that was, last updated in 2007 for an example, but it's the exact same thing where the underlying principles don't change. Like, more than likely 10 years, 15 years from now, we're still going to be, the process of auditing is still going to remain the same. Even if new tools come out, the overall step by step is still similar. So, as just one example there.
Yeah. And this pretty much goes over the goals that you should have. It doesn't talk in depth about how to meet those goals, but that's where we use multiple frameworks to be able to meet our goal, where we can look at like, let me pull it up real quick, like program administration. We can use other frameworks like that one from FEMA to be able to meet that goal. And you can use
I see
this more as a checkpoint on how to meet of what goals you want to meet. Because not all of these are required. They're a good idea, but just because they're a good idea doesn't mean they're required.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, Jasmine, I did post all of these links in the live chat, but I can go ahead and send it over to the community chat as well, just so that way it's there as well. We will go through and add some of the occupational safety stuff to the resources page. We'll add a new category for that. But I also have a feeling that there's so much out there that we may just have to make an entirely new resources page just for the occupational safety side.
And yeah, Cam, with OSHA being very ambitious on the implementations and applications of things, I used to agree very severely with that, but learning in this field and working alongside with people in this field, I've greatly found that common sense is very lacking these days. Um, there's a lot of facilities these days, for example, that teach people how to use razor knives, like pocket knives. And that's a part of a OSHA standard, teaching people how to use their tools properly. And there was one person, one of my instructors, about a year and a half, about 2 years ago, that told me, because I had made the same thing with like OSHA. I feel like OSHA just implements things to implement things, just to make it look like they're doing something. And he had told me there's a reason for every single thing that OSHA implements. It's solely to protect the people. Generally, a OSHA 500 recordable is posted to them, and they review it, and they go, "Oh, we don't have a standard to prevent this at all, and it is a possibility of it happening. Maybe we should put a standard in for this. And maybe we can curb it from happening again." Yeah, yeah. It was very shocking to me, because when I first got hired on at the position I'm with at the company I'm with, uh, we had, the knife class, and I was kinda like, "Why knives aren't hard to use. Cut away from yourself, don't cut towards anyone." Pretty standard stuff, like the blood triangle, for example, and utilizing those tools, but they're not common knowledge. Uh Even to this day, even people that have taken that class, still you can see people cutting towards themselves and stuff like that, and it's very confusing to me because you're taking this extremely sharp tool, moving it towards yourself, towards a core part of your body, and those knives get extremely sharp. We use, titanium tipped blades in the factory that I work in, and those things cut through rubber like nothing, and they cut through your skin like it's a piece of paper. And
Yeah.
this one, let me get it pulled up on my side so I can.
Yeah, so this was the last one that was in the list, and I wanted
Yep.
to pull this one up too, because this is also an incredible resource. A lot of the stuff, like one of the biggest reasons I love NIST so much is because it's a public entity. So their stuff's not copyrighted, their stuff is public domain and so forth. And it's not paywalled kind of stuff like we have with ISO, for an example, or otherwise. And so it's awesome to see stuff like this too. So this is U.S. Department of Transportation and emergency response guidebooks. And it looks like this is directed towards the hazardous material.
Mhm. Yep. They have open checklists for drivers. They have information pamphlets. They have a whole book talking about what drivers should do in different situations and how you guys can prepare your drivers properly.
Yeah. And so this is a awesome
And
resource here. They even have a
the
mobile app.
yep, I was just about to say that they also have a mobile app for this.
That's crazy. NIST needs a mobile app. That's what oh my gosh. We need to start a petition. I want a NIST mobile app. That's going to be a new thing, everybody. We're gonna have to like do some type of like online petition for everybody to sign, because we need NIST to have a mobile app too. How does the U.S. Department of Transportation put out an app just for hazardous material and NIST doesn't have one? I'm a little upset now.
I don't know if the U.S. Department of Transportation did it solely. They most likely did have help from private entities to like get it running. It was probably something similar to this, where people were like, "Hey, we should really have this." I mean, the people it's gearing towards are on the road. Like, it's not like they're going to have computers with them and stuff like that. And a lot of websites don't load properly on phones. Maybe we should make a app for this.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, Brenda's on board, Cam's on board. Yeah, KP's on board. Like, yeah, this is. Come on, NIST. Come on. Is following OSHA tightly policed? Did you want to talk a little bit about like potential penalties and like how that is policed?
So, with OSHA, at least to my knowledge, of course, I do not work for OSHA. I do not sponsor OSHA. I have no affiliations with OSHA. To my knowledge, they don't generally do random audits. And when they do random audits, it's really hard for them to cover everything, because you have so many different fields in this one field. You have people that focus on the environmental side, people that focus on the admin control side, people that focus on the engineer control side. So it's hard for one investigator, well, one auditor, to be able to know all of that information. So a lot of things I've heard can get missed on an OSHA audit that shouldn't. But to my knowledge, when it comes to OSHA, generally, if you have an issue in your facility that's getting reported by your employees to OSHA, sorry about that. If you have people reporting things to OSHA, then OSHA will come in and they'll do an audit. From what I've heard in the past, it is announced audits. They'll let you know ahead of time. And OSHA isn't, they can fine you. They can also very easily get your business taken down, but they're not in the game of doing that. They don't want to issue fines. They don't want to do all of that stuff. Their job is to curb the incident rates and make your employees safe. So they'll give you the time. They'll tell you like, hey, we found all of these issues when we just audited you. You need to get these fixed. And they'll give you the time to do that. And if you refuse to, and you make it clear like, hey, we don't care about you, then they might start implementing fines. But at least from what I've heard, they generally give you a grace period to try to fix your stuff. Unless it's like very blatant stuff, like you're allowing people to climb up towers without safety harnesses on.
Oh yeah, look at that, Cam. 80 to 90% of employees I fired called OSHA over BS claims. Honestly, I'm going to. We've talked quite a bit, Cam, and so forth and whatnot, but like that seems excessively high. I'm just saying, like that sounds more of a toxic workplace, or maybe you're hiring the wrong people at that point. 80 to 90%.
That is a common thing I've heard of, is people trying to utilize government organizations like OSHA to retaliate against an employer that they don't like anymore, which sucks because it really clogs up their system. Because they get a claim, they have to investigate it to an extent, whether that be calling the employer and verifying that way, or physically going out to the site. And OSHA doesn't have enough auditors to be able to go to all of these sites, especially when it's over false claims. But it does happen.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure OSHA takes that into consideration too. And maybe that's why they're a little bit more on the, let's get this fixed rather than, shut down your business type of mindset at the get-go at least.
Yeah, and sometimes with issues in facilities, all that needs to happen is a call from OSHA. I know I worked for an employer before that was violating multiple things OSHA related, uh, from blocking fire exits, blocking the fire cabinets, poor lighting, and I had brought it up to the employer multiple times that like these things need to be fixed, and they didn't want to fix them. They didn't want to put the
Yeah.
money out for it, so I contacted OSHA and informed them, and they got a phone call from OSHA the following week. And then in less than 2 weeks, the issues were resolved.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Let me see here. Cam says I haven't fired that many people though. I'm just saying that 80 to 90% seems high. Like I honestly would probably investigate it if it's that high. Like if I were to fire 10 employees and 8 or 9 of them contacted OSHA or some agency, like, yeah, I would probably like readjust like my hiring protocols or maybe offboarding or something. That just seems extremely high to me. So let's see. If you guys have any other questions, topics, or otherwise, definitely drop that in chat. Absolute worst case scenario, we could go through one of these documents and take it from there. And also, Matthew, if you need to drop at any time, that's perfectly fine as well.
Oh, I'm good. I'm off work.
People with PTO and so forth.
Yeah, vacations are nice.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out that whole NIST app side of things too. What are some of the different overarching regulations? So, like, if we were to put together like a framework, or like a company's interested in actually doing something now, like they haven't even thought about this yet, they're a small organization that hasn't even taken this into account, where is there a resource for that? Maybe there's like a quick start guide or...
Yep, that would be OSHA. That
Just
would
through
be
OSHA?
trying to be in compliance with all the 1910 standards for whatever applies to you, and then taking it from there. OSHA is the baseline when it comes to safety within the United States, well, occupational safety. So that's a great stepping stone, is looking at those standards, making sure you're in line with all of those standards, and then building out from there, like adopting properties from other safety related organizations like the Canadian Health Board or the NOSH, or adopting stuff from them that have maybe stricter standards. But first thing is doing OSHA, making sure you're in compliance with all of their stuff, and then building out from there to make it even safer.
Yeah, and so this was right on the homepage of OSHA as well. So training requirements and OSHA standards. And it's interesting on one part that you stated about based on your industry or otherwise, because that's what it seems like this is all broken up into. So hazardous materials, environmental controls, personal protective equipment, PPE, fire protection. So they split it all up based on the industry.
Yes. So, and there's some industries that don't actually have to follow OSHA regulations in general here in the United States. It all depends on your industry. And dependent, like this is the training standards. So pretty much when it comes to training is if it's not extreme common knowledge, your employees have to be trained on it. That's pretty much what the gist of it is. So using a box cutter, for example, there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to use one properly, which is why a lot of companies choose to train people how to use one, having a quick 10, 15, 20-minute class on how to do it.
Yeah.
Or uh, like welding. If you're welding in your facility, ensuring the people that have access to the welders know how to properly maintain that fuel and do it safely, and how to properly weld and doing it safely. Uh, just because they say they can weld doesn't necessarily mean they can weld. Uh, uh, the few facilities that I know of that have welding within their facility that I've worked in the past, one of the requirements to be able to weld in the facility is physically showing them multiple times on how to start welding from start to finish. So that way they can say, "Yep, this person knows how to do it. They know how to do it safely, and they perform it well."
Yeah, and I'm going to prompt this next question with we do not provide legal advice or otherwise. It's just, our take and so forth. Definitely consult, the proper qualified professionals and legal departments and otherwise for that type of stuff. But in general, my concept on this too is that even if you're a US company, so if I form a company in the United States, but my workers are out of the United States, then I would not have to follow these regulations if my workers are out of country. Would
So
that
to my knowledge, if the work is not being performed within the United States, I believe you would be correct.
hmm. I'm just
Uh,
thinking, from a business standpoint and everything else. But then also, I think it gets a little bit more complicated too. But I wonder, like, I came across an article a few years back about like the oil rigs and how unsafe those facilities typically are. And I wonder if that might be why, because they're in international waters.
yeah,
So,
well, there are a lot of companies, even within the US, it's not just a problem within the US, it's a global issue that do cut ties on safety because they see the cost, but they don't factor in the cost of a dead body. They That's like the last thing they're thinking about. They're just thinking of the immediate cost. Uh
mhm.
which sucks because if you just run your operation safely, it could potentially cost a lot less than if you're running it unsafely.
Yeah. Well, and it's also a pretty similar thing on the GRC side because you have to position it in words in the business lingo um, directly involving the mission of the company, which is almost always to increase revenue, make money, and so forth. And so you have to talk in those financial terms and show, like, hey, if we do this, if we spend $100,000 for a firewall, it's going to save us this much money over the next 5 years in incident response or whatever it is. So trying to actually quantify that.
Yeah, and that might change on the global scale too in the future because I know there's a few countries where it's not like that, where they do still have to follow the laws of the country they're home based in. Uh, Such as, Germany. I know Germany, I think it was back in I wanna say it was 2023 or 2024, they implemented new, ethics laws, and those ethic laws, they required any company that, is based in Germany to follow, even if the work is being performed in the United States or Canada or Africa, they had to follow their ethics.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like Jasmine also mentions BP Springs. I'm assuming that's a company in particular. Maybe that's the oil company. But then also, like in one of the previous safety talks, we had also mentioned, what is it, DuPont?
Yeah, DuPont.
Yeah, that was a whole like that is absolutely amazing, and I don't think anybody ever like got legally in trouble for that.
So to my knowledge, they have laws. They're constantly being sued. DuPont, 3M, those uh, mega corporations that infected a lot. Uh,
Yeah.
that's been linked to them with forever chemicals.
Mhm.
To my knowledge, they have lost multiple lawsuits, and they're constantly still being sued for it. I know down there in Minneapolis, I don't know if it was recently, but I know it's starting to get headway again of locals complaining about a lake that's by the 3M facility that is fenced in and closed down because of contamination. And it used to be a popular lake, but no one can go in it now because they had to fence it off and all of that stuff because of contamination.
Yeah. I kind of feel like doing a video about it just because it's such an interesting topic, especially from the GRC standpoint, because in my opinion, they handled it extremely wrong. And then even after it came out that they were doing the wrong thing and they got in trouble and fined for it and everything else, then their response to that was to just take one chemical out or change one thing in the chemical makeup, and then they did the exact same thing all over again with a new chemical.
Well, they didn't change the chemical makeup because of the outlash from the public. When they changed the chemical makeup, at least to my knowledge, at least from what I've researched in it, they changed the chemical makeup because the makeup they were using was causing too much friction, which was producing heat in the creation process. So the water wasn't able to dissipate it fast enough, which is what caused their initial explosion in their factory, which is why they changed the chemical makeup from it, from the what was it, the C8, and they changed it to I want to say it was C6, so that way there would be less heat, less friction.
Yeah, I think we could definitely do some type of video, like using that as a case study and so forth, and kind of turn it into like a tabletop case study type of thing. I'm also going to go ahead and drop this in chat again. Oh, I already dropped this a second ago. But if you guys wanted to grab your guys' weekly badge, now would be the time to do it. So we'll probably cut this a little bit short and so forth. If you guys have any other questions, definitely drop that. I'm still going to stick around for a couple minutes. But yeah, a lot of information covered. I did also drop all of those links that Matthew shared in the community chat as well. And then that's going to be one of the other things on the task list here, is going to be getting some of these occupational safety or safety and health type of stuff added onto a section on the resources page too.
Yeah, and DuPont is a prime example of a company that cared more about profits. Because I remember it also came out in the court case that they knew about the dangers beforehand, and they changed the SDS paperwork from 3M to be able to do what they were doing, to be able to get the profits from the military.
Yeah, if you guys have any recommendations for the case studies and so forth with a GRC perspective, definitely drop that in Discord or otherwise. I noted down the DuPont, but then also like Cam's mentioning Twin Cities 3M. It's actually kind of fascinating because like one of the main 3M factories are, only a couple hours south of me. So, but yeah.
You used to have one a little bit
presentation.
closer too, but that one shut down back in like 2005.
Yeah. Well, and then also, if you guys were not familiar, we are trying to get more talk about the health and safety aspect here and underneath the GRC realm. And so on the, what is it, the second and the last Wednesday of every month is what we agreed on, I think.
Yep.
Then there's the safety talks that is at 11 a.m. on Wednesdays. So there is a playlist on our YouTube channel for that as well. Which, of course, I'm sure, like, if you guys have any particular questions or topics, then I'm sure Matthew can, take a look at doing videos on those particular ones too.
Yes, everyone, you guys can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you guys got anything in particular that you guys have questions about, or you have a video idea that you would like to particularly see, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and I'll drop his LinkedIn here as well. And then, like I said, last call for the badges. Bam. The Hallucination Act is an interesting and shocking piece. Definitely worth a mention. Oh my God, I completely miss. Yeah, see, like with Cam and all of the discussion around the AI hallucinations and so forth, I literally just ran with that. Halliburton Act. I'm not even familiar with that at all. That's something I would have to look into. But Does that coincide with those other case study? Do you know anything about that, Matthew? Let's see. Halliburton.
I'm doing the
Act.
same thing you're doing.
Yeah. Okay, so it's the Hill-Burton Act, officially known as the Hospital Survey and Construction Act. This U.S. federal law, enacted in 1946, provided funding for the construction and modernization of hospitals, particularly in underserved areas. Okay, so it led to a significant increase in hospital construction. Wrong one. Google is incorrect here then.
Are you guys talking about the Safe Drinking Water Act?
That would probably be more on point. Okay, so I just looked it up for Halliburton Act lawsuit, and it says Halliburton has been involved in various lawsuits, including those related to securities fraud, asbestos liability, and patent infringement. A significant securities class action lawsuit resulted in a $100 million settlement. Another case involved a former employee's age discrimination suit, which reached the Supreme Court. Additionally, Halliburton has been involved in patent infringement. You're probably talking about the securities class action, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff that's gone down with. I don't even know what company that is. I've never even heard of them. But there is a lot of stuff on them on Google search here. Wow. All right.
If I had to guess, it's probably a huge parent company that we most likely buy stuff from frequently that we just don't know about because we buy from their sister companies.
So it looks like it's a major provider of services and products to the global energy industry. So critical infrastructure, so industrial drilling products. So well construction, energy services, yeah, a broad range of different things. And they also operate in 80 countries worldwide. So looks like their primary thing is oil and gas. Oh, I see. So primarily to do with fracking laws. Definitely should do like a forensic review of the DuPont or 3M ongoing sagas for one with the upcoming safety talks.
I have thought about doing like instant reviews, like toolbox talk type things, where we would go on to, because OSHA has all of their sites and stuff, public information on their website. So we have the potential to be able to go to their website, screen share with it, and pull up one of their recent sites or recent fatality and read their documentation of what happened and kind of give our 2 cents on critical thinking wise of like what could have been done to prevent it and what regulations we would say might have prevented it, or if there should be new regulations added for it.
What I would like to see is some videos from you that are like 1980s black and white safety talks.
Back in the, or do ones from back in the World War II days. Lots of companies were ramping up production for all of that stuff, and a lot of stuff went wrong doing it.
Yeah, like was mentioned previously on your safety talks, is that, you know, a lot of these regulations and so forth are written in blood. So, yeah, something goes wrong before it actually gets implemented. Yeah, that's definitely something we'll take a look at. Not only the one that Jasmine mentioned, but then also Cam for DuPont and 3M. I think it would be a really interesting videos to do is to go through and do like the case study for it, and then take it from a GRC perspective on like, you know, this is how I personally, me, Chris, would respond to this particular thing. Everybody's going to have their own stuff and so forth, but then we could side out to, NIST and OSHA and so forth and take it from that kind of perspective as well. Point out some of the different flaws and potential improvements, like lessons learned. Black and white videos with a guy smoking darts, talking fire safety. Oh gosh. At one of my previous employers, there actually was one where it was how to use fire extinguishers, and the guy was literally going through and smoking a cigarette at the time. Yeah, and thank you guys for hopping in here and so forth. The Chernobyl incident, yeah, that's another big one too. This is also, I think that would be a really good opportunity to, like, this isn't something we've talked about before or has come up, but I think going through and doing that kind of stuff would actually be really awesome. And then we have people like Matthew here that can provide the health and safety side of things to it as well. Yeah. If you guys have anything else, definitely drop that in Discord. Did you have any final last words, Matthew, before we bring this to an end?
Yes, tomorrow, 4th of July. Everyone be safe out there. Be careful lighting the fireworks. Know where they're about to shoot to. Don't light your house or any trees on fire unless you're purposely doing it.
What a nerd safety guy. What are you going to do? Be out there with the clipboard? Oh, you're not 30 yards from it.
No, I'll just be purposely lighting trees on fire. I won't do it accidentally.
And then also thank you to, I'm just going to say it, but Big Daddy Hawk, thank you for posting the Wikipedia for that. Yeah, no, these are great ideas that we could run off of. So yeah, thank you guys for throwing those out there and so forth. And yeah, also KP mentions make sure your area isn't on a fire ban too. That's an important mention too. But yeah, you guys have a great 4th of July. Also, we did a vote in the Badge Hunters chat for whether or not you guys wanted an AMA on 4th of July, or if you wanted it on Saturday. It literally was a 50-50. So half of the people went through and voted for Friday, half of the people voted for Saturday. So we're just going to go ahead and do both. So we'll meet up at 11 a.m. tomorrow Central Time for the AMA, and then on Saturday we'll run it again for another live stream at 11 a.m., which will also be a recap of whatever we discuss tomorrow. But also for those of you who aren't able to make it or otherwise, we'll also provide that and host it on Saturday too. So worst case scenario, I will be there talking about NIST docs. So bam. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. I'll see you guys in Discord. Catch you guys tomorrow. Have a good 4th of July, GRC Mafia.
It was a pleasure being here. Y'all have a great day. Enjoy your holidays.